Recording. Look at that. Hey everybody, it's only 8:15 and Brian and I finally figured out how to set up a Zoom instead of a YouTube live because YouTube hates me right now. And
And we're
apparently
live.
hated Brian last week.
We're live, technically,
We are live.
right?
Brian and I haven't caught up in a long time, so you just get to write all your comments on.
Well, I can't catch up. I mean, you're like out living a cyclist life and traveling the world and having your almond cake and cappuccinos. I mean, come on.
I know. And last year I came home and my power to weight ratio had gone up. It was more about the weight part of the ratio. And this year, the power to weight ratio might have gone down a little because I rode with a different group this year in Mallorca and wasn't doing quite the same volume. It was a lot of volume, but last year I also limited myself to 2 desserts at dinner, and I didn't have that filter this year. I was like, whatever. I'm in Mallorca. And no, I feel great. And hey, everybody, let's just say hi first before we kind of jump in. But Coach Lorri Lown, Coach Brian Hammond, we're here to say hello. And I just spent 3 weeks on the island of Mallorca. It always sounds exciting to say that little island in the Mediterranean, part of Spain, which is probably one of the more popular cycling meccas in the world. Have
For
you
sure.
ridden there, Brian?
No, I have not been to Mallorca.
Next year.
Um, Hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll get there.
I know.
If not, I'm probably going to go regardless. But
Oh,
yeah, it's on my bucket list for sure.
yeah, it is definitely. The cool thing about going to Mallorca, so we had 16 training days, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. When I get there, it's like my whole world changes. All you do is eat a lot because you're riding
Hmm.
day after day after day after day, and train and do a little bit of work and sleep. I took naps. And the cool thing was sleep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's an early morning. I went to the theater last night, and I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. But a few months ago, a friend of mine said, I want to take you for your birthday, because I have a birthday with a 0 in it, to see my favorite musical, which happens to be Six. And so,
Yeah.
and in San Francisco. So I got home at midnight and got up at 6, and it was a total of 5 hours sleep. And I'm a little tired this morning. But anyways, back to sleep on Mallorca. Everything gets normal for me after this block. And I watch my heart rate go down, my resting heart rate, and my HRV go up, and my stress level goes down, and my fitness level goes up. And I did pretty good. I've been home for 4 days, and everything was pretty good until last night when I was like, oh, and then we're driving your boyfriend to Oakland after the show. And then we have to drive back to San Jose. And then I have to drive over the hill to Santa Cruz. So I'm a little tired this morning, but
So the question is, how do you maintain that? Like, how do you,
right.
right? Because life doesn't stop when you go on vacation.
No.
We think it does. We feel like it does momentarily. And yes, some things do some normal day-to-day stresses aren't there that we can't ignore for the rest of our life. That it's a reason we go on vacations to ignore some of those things. But a lot of the things that we stress ourselves about every day, or the habits or routines that we keep every day, are not mandatory.
No.
You
And
know,
I've been
and
working with my therapist on that.
yeah, I
Right.
think
It's
that's
how
the
much.
hardest thing, is like bringing vacation home is really like, how do you do that?
Mm-hmm. And I was really proud of myself this week because I was like, okay, you are going to be in bed at 9 o'clock. You used to do this, and you're going to sleep. You're going to get a
Hmm.
full night's sleep. You've been kidding yourself that 6 hours is a full night's sleep. And it's not controlling the wake up time, because I'm going to wake up at the same time regardless without an
Correct.
alarm.
Yep.
It's controlling the bedtime. And
100%.
that also means controlling my work schedule, because the days that I work in my bike fit studio, I don't get home until 8. So I have to plan and have my dinner earlier in the day, not when I get home.
Hmm.
I have to make sure that I don't run a million errands and go to the grocery store and the drugstore and everything on the way home, that I get home and I play with my cat for a little bit and I go to bed. The other thing I
And
did,
do you have to be at the studio that long?
no, I can switch the schedule around, right? I make my own schedule, right? Every
Correct.
business owner in the world is going to say, oh, yeah, I went into business so I could control my schedule. And then we all work the demands of, and in the bike fit world, I will say, I have a lot of clients who will take time off during the day from work to come
Mhm.
see me, but that's not possible for everyone. And so I
Correct.
definitely have to have some evening hours available, but
Yes.
maybe,
Or one-offs here or there,
yeah,
right? But,
right.
especially now and especially post-COVID, where so many people work from home or have that flexibility of schedule, it's not as needed to
Right.
do that sometimes. And, I think all this kind of boils down is to having proper limitations
Hmm.
on our businesses and our friends and our family and
Right.
everything, and just being like, this is a non-negotiable. Like, no, I don't
And I
work
have to
past a certain time.
treat myself like I'm an employee. I wouldn't make my
Yes.
employee do the things that I do, right?
Yes. But a lot of
Or
times
they
we do it
wouldn't be
out
my
of
employee
scarcity,
for long.
right? A lot of times we do it out of a scarcity mindset. We're scared that we're not going to get that business. So
Yeah.
therefore we go through it, or we're scared if I don't stay up and work late, my boss is going to then replace me with somebody else or something along that
Right.
lines. Right. So a part of it is just this mindset that I think that's how we bring vacation home is your mindset changes when you're on vacation and you
Right.
rearrange your priorities. And I think I've been working on that for like the last 5 years of my life.
Hmm.
Right. It's like just trying to like, and part of that was moving to Vermont. Like that was
Right.
part of that shift of like, I always say it's like I was trying to live a certain life in New York or a certain way, a certain mindset that's very hard to do in that environment. It's not
Yes.
impossible. It's just everybody else in that environment is not supporting that type of lifestyle.
Right.
And you could do it. It's just really hard. Where in Vermont, I'm in a community where more people are living the same kind of lifestyle that I want to. It makes it a lot easier.
Right.
It's really
And
hard to diet when nobody else in the room is dieting, right? If
right.
everyone's dieting, it's a lot easier to maintain that diet and not have,
Or just,
the
let's say,
fourth
healthy
cake.
nutrition, not necessarily diet.
Yes,
But
correct.
yeah. And having
Yes.
a family gives you some accountability. So, I had a family and now I live alone. And it's like I could do whatever I can or I want. And
Mhm.
it was so interesting last night though. I worked in theater for 14 years and 4 years of school in theater. So almost 2 decades of being in that industry. And I lived a very different life. I mean, I still wore black because that's what you do. But I smoked, I drank, I worked late, I went out at night, and I didn't think about it. And even when I was working in San Francisco in the financial district, I remembered last night, I was like, oh, yeah, I had this buddy, and he was my theater buddy. We used to go to the theater because when you work at a place like Charles Schwab, where I worked, no one lived in San Francisco. People lived all over. So your social life with your friends, your coworkers was during the week. You'd go out to dinner after work before going
Mhm.
home. You'd go to the theater. And I haven't been going to the theater. And last night I was like, yeah, this is great. But man, am I going to be tired tomorrow? And I was so proud of myself. I had a freak out at one point yesterday and I was like, oh my God, how long is this play? 80 minutes. Okay, that's good. And I didn't know it actually starts at 7:30, which is nice for the old people like me. And I was like, how long is it going to take us to drive? And oh my God, maybe I should just drive to San Francisco. And um, and then I was like, Lorri, just breathe. Just go. Your friend is more important than anything else right now. And you haven't been the best friend lately. And he's taking you for your birthday. And so just go and relax. And I had all these other interesting things that happened, like my bike that didn't make it back home, my bike that cost more than my car, that did
Yeah,
not get on
I
the
would have been
plane in Mallorca.
freaking out about that. That
And then
that
it
would freak me out.
sat in Frankfurt. So my AirTag told me where it was. And then it sat for 60 hours at SFO. And you'd call and they're like, oh, blah, 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 courier, keep the lines open, they all say. And I'm like, what does it mean? She's like, answer your phone. I was like, okay, I can do that. And so I had to have my ringer on for 60 hours and I never keep my ringer on. It is triggering to me when I hear the
Yeah, I
dings.
wouldn't even know what my phone sounds like if it rang.
Right. And the
Or
Swift
I'd be like,
notifications and all the
yeah,
things. And I was like, you're okay. It's just a bike. It is just a bike. And what's the worst case scenario if it doesn't get back to you? You have other bikes. You'll get another bike. So
yeah.
I stayed calm.
As long as it's insured, as long as it's insured, it's
I
not a
know.
big deal. If it's not insured, it's not. Then it's a
I
big
know,
deal.
but it is my love. I love my bike. It's very special. And so I
All bikes
decided
are.
I'm
All
going to
bikes are
bring the
special.
spirit of Mallorca home, as you were saying, right? Bring the spirit of vacation home. And that really depends on me being disciplined.
Yes.
Going to bed, I limited myself. Well, not yesterday, because I was like, oh, what if I fall asleep driving over this little mountainy road? So I was like, have one cup of coffee a day. And this was when we started a perfect shot of espresso with crema. I brought this the last day of our trip. We ride Formentor, which is a beautiful climb, well, 4 little climbs, out to a lighthouse. And then we all have lunch on the beach, and the ocean is this color. And there's a little ceramic shop there. And last year, I know, no chicken mug today. Last year I bought this little cup because it fits in your jersey pocket. So it was a souvenir. You know, I think it cost €3. It was not a big expense. And I was like, it looks just like the ocean. And every time I have a shot, it's going to make me think. And then I was like, this year, I need another cup. So I have these 2 cups that remind me. So I'm bringing my vacation home.
And there you go. And now you have a routine every year to bring a mug home.
I know. Or just move there, which is in the plans. But
but like I said, vacation and living are not the same.
I know.
Right. Once you move someplace, it's no longer a vacation place. And then can you maintain the lifestyle that you wanted there? Can you maintain it when it now becomes your job? Because now you work there, right? Now you have a studio there.
Right.
Did you?
I mean, 25 years ago, I took my hobby and I turned it.
But that's what I'm saying. And now you're in the same spot, right? So it's not the environment, it's how you choose to live in the environment that's important. Right. And this was a conversation I had with my wife when my wife left her job. I was like, it's not that your job is causing you to do this, it's the way in which you approach your job. Right. Right. And if you start your own business, are you going to approach it differently than the way you work for somebody else? Or are you still going to burn the candle at both ends? I used to say to my wife, like, she doesn't burn the candle at both ends. She snaps the damn thing and burns it like in the middle too. Like it's like the thing's burning at 4s.
Which is somewhat ironic, right? Because your wife has this wellness, positivity business, and
that came from this. Yeah. Like that's like the reason she does that is because it was her journey. That's how she was like, she fried. Right. And this was her path to get there. And then she's like, listen, other people need to follow this path as well. And then created the path for people to follow. Right. So it was like looking back on how did I get to this point?
But wouldn't you say, I mean, people ask me all the time, we'll talk about this in a minute about our jobs. People ask me all the time, how did you become a coach? And I was like, well, I started riding a bike. And I rode the California AIDS ride, and it was the first thing I'd ever done athletically. The first time I had an accomplishment like that, beside like the 100-yard dash ribbon I got in kindergarten or first grade. And it changed my life, not so much fitness wise, but my self-esteem. It made me a better person. I succeeded at something. And so when I describe to people how I made this journey to becoming an athlete and a coach, I wanted to share not cycling with people, but success. Because when I succeed, then I'm a better parent, a better spouse, a better employer or employee. And that's what drives me. So a very similar journey. I took my cycling journey and turned it into a mission to help other people do that same thing.
Correct.
And I think most people who develop businesses or take an independent path are in a similar boat. And maybe it takes us a while to get there. I mean, I hustled, I taught spin classes, and I worked at bike shops, and I did all these things until I really could run my whole business. But yeah, I mean, what was your path? Talk to me. Would you say, let's start with a question. When someone asks you what you do, what do you say? What's your job title? What do you put on your tax form? Oh God, taxes.
Yeah, no. Taxes? Who does taxes? Come on.
Be careful.
Is there even an IRS? I don't think there is anymore. It's a little unique. Like, what do I say I do? Like, I typically say I'm a coach or a bike fitter. Like, I would definitely just kind of
slow down and say that again.
You know, if somebody.
Wait a minute, go back, rewind. You say you are a
coach and bike fitter.
Okay.
It's typically because that's like the quick, easy answer. You know, if I'm giving my elevator pitch to somebody, it's like, oh, what is that? What do you do? I typically say to somebody, I'm like, all right, do you have a goal? Whatever goal it is you want, whether it's physical or anything. Yeah, of course, we all have something we're trying to accomplish. I'm like, all right, well, my job is to help you get there.
Right.
That's it. Now, what does that look like can be different for every single person. But I believe that if there's a physical, especially if it's physical, if there's a physical thing that you want to accomplish, I can help you get there, period. Right. It's the same way. If I want to retire someday, I have to have financial goals and I have to have somebody who can advise me financially of how to get there. Can I figure it out on my own? yeah, I probably can. I don't have the time to, and nor like the risks are too big. Like I'll probably
Right.
fuck it up. Um, so yeah, for me, it's about just helping somebody along the journey to their goal. That's
Hmm.
it. It's not to provide you with something or take away something. It's just I'm there as a resource.
Yeah.
But I got into this a little differently in the fact of like I went to school for physical education.
Hmm.
I went to school, so
Can't see you teaching kickball,
oh man, I loved it. Like it was great.
slam ball, and yeah.
Yeah, so I went right into college knowing I wanted to be in phys ed, right? That was just the path I thought I would take,
Hmm.
and had all intentions of teaching when I graduated high school. I had a job offer actually in Maryland that I didn't take because I wanted to go back to New York City. And then when I got to New York City, there was just no teaching jobs
Right.
available. So I started as a personal trainer at Equinox, and I loved it. You know, it
Well,
was
it's
the
like being a
same
PE
thing.
teacher for adults.
It basically, I was like, yes, this is phys ed for people who actually want to learn, not teenagers for the most part. And the pay was better. And, you know, I was able to get into education with them and all that stuff. And then I personally was always racing mountain bikes at that point in time. But then I got into triathlons when I was doing that. And that's when I kind of started my online coaching business with like
Hmm.
2000. I mean, we're going back to like 2008, something like that. So, I mean, it was like, I always say it was like me and like Carmichael Training Institute. Like, I
Right.
felt like there was like four of us out
Oh
there.
yeah.
You know, it's not like I was super successful, but I was like, it's there, it
Hmm.
supports what I do. And then, you know, over time, it just took off.
Yeah. I
And I left the
predate
personal trainer
Training
part.
Peaks. Go figure that out. I remember
I
when
know, it's
Training Peaks,
crazy.
but it was called Cycling Peaks, right? It was not Training Peaks in the early
I
days.
don't think I used it then. Like
Well,
I was sending like
rejected it.
Excel spreadsheets.
I was
Like
doing
it was Excel.
spreadsheets, and we
Yeah.
didn't have like Google Docs or anything. And so I was doing spreadsheets for my clients. And I remember when Cycling Peaks was first introduced, and I still had to do everything on spreadsheets. And then I had to redo it. And I was like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously come a long way, but well, and I'm similar, and I tell people I'm a coach. I'm a cycling coach. And because when I became a coach, you know, USA Cycling, which is the sanctioning body in the United States for bike racing and coaching, um, they had a whole bunch of different spokes, if you will, of components of what a coach was. And it included education, so like skills education, and which I did for years and I still do.
Hmm.
And it included writing training programs, and it included developing teams. And I mean, there was a whole component of education around how to develop juniors and teams, and what are the components of a club, because coaches were running clubs, which has totally changed. And
Yes.
bike fitting, which bike fitting when I started was not, I mean, in the whole Bay Area, one of the largest metropolitan areas in the United States, there were three bike fitters. They were all men. One of them was a PT who did a little bike fitting on the side, and one was only worked with custom builders, and one only did triathlon. And I was like, okay. And they all mentored me in different ways. And I kind of hung out my shingle and did a pretty poor job probably for the first 5 years or so. But that became my niche. It was like, okay, I started a women's cycling club and I did a lot of bike fitting. So I was teaching skills and doing bike fitting, which really, in my opinion, paired together quite well, because it's all
100%.
about how your body moves on the bike. People think, why? Those are so different things. I'm like, they're not.
No,
My
no, I
bike
mean,
isn't fit to me. I can't ride it. And if I
correct.
don't understand the physics of riding it, I can't ride it. So they make complete sense. And then for a while, I quit writing training programs altogether. I took a break from one-on-one clients. It's only been the last couple of years I came back. But so it also depends who I'm talking to. You know, who's my audience when they say, oh, what do you do? Well, I might be a
Hmm.
coach, or I might be a bike fitter, or I might be a skills instructor, or all of them.
Right, it might be one-on-one or group coaching and stuff
Yeah.
like that, right? And yeah, I did some group coaching in the past as well, and I don't do that anymore. I just do the one-on-ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It changes, and that's I think also with this whole path is, I mean, what my focus is. And you know, a couple of years ago, it was all triathlons because Ironman was super popular, and then I saw gravel kind of coming
Right.
along the way as Ironman's dying off. Gravel. So, like one of the things I never say is I never say I'm a cycling coach. I always just say I'm an endurance coach
Yeah.
because it is about endurance sports for me overall, whether that's running or cycling or triathlon or gravel or mountain bike or cyclocross or whatever it might be. Like all of
Right.
it is the same. And however whatever mode of transportation you choose to challenge yourself, I'm all for. Like, you want to climb Everest, let's go for it. Like,
Right.
still, we'll figure
And
it
then who
out.
knew that Peloton was going to come into the equation? I mean, I taught spinning for years, and I know you did as well. And then I taught CompuTrainer classes where you all brought your bike and we all were set up and had power data. And the whole Peloton thing came out of nowhere, really.
Not really, because it literally the studio opened up across the street from my studio, my CompuTrainer studio. So I'm like, I literally saw it being built.
Isn't that crazy?
And I knew Matt, right? And I knew some other client and some other spin instructors that were like trying out, like they were auditioning for Peloton.
Yeah.
Somebody that invited me says I was invited. Someone was like, you should go. I was like, no. I was like, because a couple of things. I was like, number one, my spin class must have been the most boring spin class in the world.
Endurance.
Oh my God. Like it was whatever my workout was for the day. So the workout was awesome. But it was like, I basically said like 5 words the whole time.
Right.
I was like flat road or climb, stand or seated. Like that was about it. Like what else am I talking about in there? Like we're either on a flat road or we're climbing. Yeah, we're either standing or we're seated. Like that's it. We're just rolling with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was super boring. And I had my faithfuls, like the people that loved my class, like the cyclists for the most part. But like my wife used to take my class and she's like, you stink as an instructor. I'm like, all right, don't take my class. Like there's another class like an hour later, go for it. So I was like, no way. And plus, honestly, I didn't think it was going to be successful.
Right.
I was like, who wants to do this in their home? Like it's all about being in the classroom and the energy and all that stuff. Honestly, I thought it was going to fall on its face.
Right.
And eat crow, like, no way, man. Like they nailed it. I thought they did. I think Peloton did a really good job the same way CrossFit did, was creating a community. And when you create a community, people want to be a part of it and they stay a part of it. And they brought the convenience factor. And with fitness, the most important thing to me, and this is what I say to my clients, is if it's not convenient, you're not going to do it. If you have to drive 3 miles to the pool, you're not going to go.
Right.
The first time it's cold or raining, like you're just going to cut it out. If that pool's in your building or around the corner, you can walk there. It's a lot more likely that you're going to do it. The same thing with cycling. Like, yeah, you got 45 minutes to work out, but it takes you a half an hour, 40 minutes to drive to the gym, do it, come back. It's an hour and a half later. Where with Peloton, like literally, it's in your room.
And it's all there now.
Class is 45-minute class. Like
all the content. I'm always surprised when I look at Strava and I see all of the local bike racers who are state champions and national champions and world champions, and they're riding Peloton classes, usually Matt's classes. And I'm like, wow, this is the secret sauce. Even here in California, where we can ride pretty much year round, we're wimps compared to Colorado. We have a couple coaches that we work with who are in Colorado, and they're out in the snow and the cold, and I'm like, oh, the ground's wet. I'm gonna ride my Peloton. Indoor training.
I live in Vermont.
I know.
Like I was outside yesterday. It was like 35 degrees outside.
Greg Wagner, who used to work with Team Wilpers, rides outside all the time, but
all the time. He's nuts.
He is nuts.
He's nuts.
Like, I got to
sometimes
he sends Mallorca.
He sends some. Awesome. I'm like, Greg, what are you doing outside? Like,
I know.
When your water freezes, it's not okay.
Yeah, like he's all in. It's good.
He's a little nutty.
The other interesting thing about our jobs, I will say, is they're very cyclical, meaning there are certain times of year when I'm going to do more bike fitting. And this is one of those times. And I will say for our Peloton folks, if you haven't had a fit, this is the time to do it. When you're at the hardest part of your training season, this is a great time to take a break and have a fit or a refit. And I had a couple of clients yesterday who were returning to sport I had one woman after 2 total knee replacements. And she's like, I have to do this for my rehab. I have to ride the bike. I can't do she does half marathons. And she's like, this is it for now. And I have to make sure it's good. And then she had posted on one of the Peloton groups, one of the over 50 groups, and everyone was talking about their bike fit experiences. And several people said, oh yeah, I had one when you guys first started in 2020. 2020? That's 5 years ago.
I know. That's crazy.
Right? And she's like, should I do it again? And I'm like, oh, yes. Oops, heck yeah. Because over 50, 5 years is like 2 decades. You know, your body has changed so much every year as we age. And our fitness changes, our weight changes, our everything changes. Menopause, all those things. And it's time. So I would say now is a great
100%.
time for all of you who haven't looked at your bike fit in a while. This would be the time to do it. And yeah, but that's what's interesting, I think, about our job is different times of year where we have emphasis on different things. Like now I'm teaching outdoor skills. In the winter, not so much. So yeah, Majorca was fun.
Yeah.
I got to teach some skills clinics in Majorca, and we have 6 ride groups at the camp, and they're based on your power to weight ratio. And this year they asked me to be a ride leader versus we had floating coaches, and I did that last year. So I rode with a lot of different groups, a lot of different people, and I was like, sure, I'll be a ride leader. Well, they gave me the lowest power to weight ratio, but what they didn't tell me was they were e-bikes. I called them my
Oh
go-go
man.
girls. And you would think, oh, you know, you're in the easy group. And yeah, I had
No, you're chasing e-bikes all day.
oh my God. Right. So I had this really hard training block of however many days with the coaches, and the coaches are super fast. And I was like, fatigue. And then I get my go-go girls on their e-bikes. And I was like, whoa, the first day we did a climb, I think it was our second day of riding, we did this climb called Magdalena, and it's not super long. It's, 15 to 20 minutes for most people. And I cut 7 minutes off my time from last year chasing the e-bikes up the hill. But the challenge was, it is like this zipper descent of off-camber, challenging. And one of the girls was from Ohio, and she had never seen a hill. And as a coach, we're not supposed to be the first down the descent because we don't want people trying to go as fast as we can. And one of the women was awesome. She's going to be 70 the day before I turned 60 this summer. And her husband founded chamois butter, which is a lubrication that we use. And some of you may know chamois butter. Anyway, she's a little tiny woman, white hair, looks kind of frail. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a rough week. Or she's not going to ride every day or whatever. Her name is Mitzi. And Mitzi was a springboard high diver. So she likes the G-force, throwing herself down into the water.
Yeah,
and also
comfortable.
a competitive skier. So I'm waiting at Magdalena, and I'm like, I'll give them 2 minutes as a head start. And then I can descend without using my brakes because I don't want to break down a hill. It's dangerous. And so I start down the hill. Mitzi is probably one of the best descenders at camp. Over the course of the week, I was like, whoa, this woman knows how to descend. I could barely keep up with her.
Ski racing.
Right. And the other woman, I come down and around the second turn, and there she is. She's heading very slowly straight for kind of the cliff. It's a wall, so she won't go over, but she'd run into it. And so I have to talk her down this switchbacky descent. And that kind of set up our week of, yeah, she was not going to be a descender, and try as much as we can. When someone doesn't have that experience and they have fear, you're not going to solve it in a week unless they practice.
No.
And, and she chose not to come to my skills clinic. She's like, but I learn more from you one-on-one. I'm like, no, you don't. Trust me, you need to come to my skills clinic, because we had one day with the clinic. But yeah, me and the go-go girls, it was like crazy. So I actually got to ride pretty hard chasing them. I could not beat Mitzi up the climbs. And it was like, oh, I can ride my own pace. This is great, which you can't with, when you have slower riders. And I could descend with her. So it was fabulous. But I have no idea where I was going. Oh yeah, I teach certain things at certain times a year. But
certain times.
But this is a busy outdoor bike fit time. And I would also say probably this is a really good time for all of you on indoor bikes to revisit your bike fit. And in Team Wilpers in particular, what do we have coming up? Oh, this is a good segue. We're going to have a little break coming up. That is a very good time in that transition, just to recheck and make sure you're maximizing your power, your comfort, you're not getting injured, and everything that's changed. And anything you would add to bike fit, Brian?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
On that. Ooh. We've done thousands of deals.
Yes. And we love you all. I remember every one of you in your leaderboard. Jan and
some of us have fit. You and I have actually fit the same people on rechecks and stuff, which is also awesome. Yeah. I had one this past week that was fitted by you like 2 years ago, and he did a refit with me. It's great because he gets different insight.
Yes.
What do you think is the biggest takeaway people get from a bike fit process? Indoor, like Peloton wise?
A lot of it is technique.
100%.
And,
That's what I was going to
we've
say.
talked
Like it's
to
technique.
Team
Yeah.
Wilpers about that over the years. We haven't talked about it in a long time, but what are we teaching you? I mean, we're making sure you're in a good position. And there's a variety of good positions, right? As you said,
Totally.
you and I may look at things slightly differently, but we're going to make sure that you're producing power and not getting injured. And, but a lot of people don't get that feedback from, instructors aren't giving you feedback. They're giving you cues.
Right.
And
They can't
some
see
of
you.
them are not cyclists. And so
Yes.
sometimes I'll teach people something and they're like, oh, but so-and-so instructor says this. And I was like, yeah, they're a runner who was taught how to teach a cycling class, or they're a dancer who was taught how to teach a cycling class.
Mhm.
And if you look at the instructors who are actually cyclists, you'll see they do things slightly differently. I'm going to teach you how to do things as a cyclist. And a lot of people, they're like, oh, but so-and-so says I should be back here, or my hand should be here. And I'm like, they don't see you either.
Yeah,
So feedback is
I
different than
agree.
doing.
Like technique, I think we talk more about technique than we do the bike fit. And I say the same thing to so many people, and you just said is like, I mean, I could set you up 10 different ways on this bike that would all be healthy. Like
Right.
they're all healthy. Ranges of motion are fine. Like you're not going to hurt yourself. One of those ways is going to be the best for you from a leverage perspective and performance perspective. And then I also think the other thing is clarity.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, it's like no one can see you. You think you're doing things correctly, but also like clarity of like, what does light hands mean? Does that
Right.
mean 0? What does sitting on the back of the saddle really mean? Should you and I be sitting in the same spot? Our pelvises are not the same width, right?
Oh,
What does it mean to drive your heel? What does it mean to do these things? Like,
yeah.
and or relax the shoulders is probably my biggest one. Like relaxing
Mm-hmm.
the shoulders doesn't always mean down. Sometimes it's back, right? It's relaxing. Gravity plays a role.
And
How am I
relaxing isn't
situated?
contracting muscles.
Right. Exactly right.
How to
Holding them
stand.
down.
You
Holding
would
down is
be,
not the same.
well, you wouldn't be amazed, but most of you out there would be amazed at how many people really struggle with standing and
Oh, for
pedaling
sure.
correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And many of you probably feel the same thing. And it's like, yeah. And that's the one thing. I got a letter or an email, a letter yesterday from a client as well. And she said, I felt really heard with you. And I was like, wow, that's great. And she
That's
said,
awesome.
I've been struggling to find my motivation, and I wasn't sure I was doing things right. And you listened to all my questions, and then you answered some things I didn't know that I had as questions. And I was like, good. Then my job was complete. I did a good one.
Yeah.
So yes, again, we're selling bike fit here, I think, but we're also selling, technique analysis. You can
I don't
come
think
back
we're
in.
selling bike fit. I think we're making it. I think we're educating on why it's so important, and that bike
Yeah.
fitting is not simply just where does my seat go and where does my handlebars go.
Right.
Bike fitting is about if the bike is set up in the proper position, then you can have proper technique. If the bike isn't set up in the proper position, having proper technique is going to be almost impossible. So you can't separate the two.
Right.
Now, you can have the bike set up in the perfect position and still have poor technique.
Mm-hmm.
So setting it up correctly isn't solving all the problems. Like how
But
do you
it's
get
setting
your
you up to
glutes
be able to
involved?
do it.
Correct. It's always about, to me, it's always technique. And it's like, typically we have to move the bike to get you into the proper position to do the proper technique, right? That to me has always been bike fitting.
It's like soup. I can have
really
all the ingredients, the onion, the tomatoes, the corn, the chicken broth, but if I don't have pot, I can't make soup. Wow,
correct.
good one.
Yeah. Or the way in which you put the ingredients in, right? Timing
Right.
of blending, all that stuff. Like, so to me, and that's why I thought the question to you was so important is like, what is it that people walk away from, or what is it that we focus on every single time is technique. Like that's always the change.
Yeah.
I've never had, that's not true. I had one bike fit where we didn't move one single thing on the guy because he was super close and he was long history of riding, like 30 plus years. He was in his late 60s. So it was like there was no benefit. Could we have moved something? Sure.
Yeah.
But there really wasn't a benefit. But there was still instruction that happened. There was still a change in technique of what he needed to do to maximize certain things. And especially for the riders that are outside riders, riding inside and riding outside are not completely different, but they are different. And riding a Peloton bike with a direct flywheel is different than riding a free-wheeled bike.
Right.
So there are changes there. Even when we think we know or feel that we know, there are still some things there that need to be pointed out. So I've never had somebody go through a bike fit where it's like, ah, that was a waste of time.
Right.
Or like, ah, they didn't walk away with something. Like,
But
where
what's
I've
so
never gone
funny
through a
is
bike
when
fit where I'm
somebody
like, you
says,
could have saved your money, right?
oh,
Like,
I got fit 10 years ago, or I got fit on my old bike and I just transfer it to my new bike or
yeah,
whatever. And it's like, no,
yeah.
we are dynamic. I change. I get my bikes fit by someone else, or I revisit it myself every year. At the
Yes.
beginning of the season, I look at things at the end, and it changes during my
I
winter
changed
training.
my bike fit during the year,
Yeah,
winter to summer, because
yeah,
my indoors or outdoors or
because
my
we get
volume
lazy
is
inside.
different. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
do
Or
things that
our
we can't
balance
do
is different.
outside. Yeah.
Things are different. And especially in the Northeast where I am, like the style of riding changes so much.
Yeah.
The length of my rides change so much. Like the intensity of my rides change so much, depending on where I am in the time of the year, that the bike fit needs to change. How am I utilizing my bikes changing? Therefore, the fit should change and my technique changes slightly.
Something you'll find interesting. I put a new component group on my bike this year. So I went from SRAM, which is one of the component manufacturers, and they have levels, and red is one of their levels. And I went from SRAM red, the old SRAM red, to the new SRAM red. And Brian just disappeared. We'll see if he comes back. Anyways, wow. What I was going to say, there he is. Where'd you go?
I was just texting you. My internet just cut out.
Oh, that's funny. Vermont, the cow kicked over the remote.
Yeah, there's a cow standing in front of my dish. Sorry.
Anyways, I was saying I went from one component group to another, and I knew that the levers on the group were longer, and they're actually, I find them very nice now. And when I first got on the bike, I was like, ooh, this is a little too much. And I've been indoor training and I feel like I'm too stretched out, but I can't change the stem length because it's going to change the tops and the drops as well. And because there's 3 hand positions on a road bike. And I thought, okay, just go and make the best of it and see how it feels. And over that intensive week, I did 16 days. So it was a 16-day block of training, and did about 1,000 miles in that period. And yeah, it was a big block. I should be super fit. We'll see next week. But anyways, what I found was my body pretty quickly adapted to that. So I could have made a change, but I didn't really need to. And adaptation is a big important thing in bike fit too, right? I always tell my outdoor riders, give it 20 hours, my indoor riders, give it 10. It's going to feel different.
And also it's like, were you changing it from a comfort perspective, or were you changing it from a need perspective, right? Like, oh, it feels long, or it feels this. Well, is it just because it's different than what you're used to? Doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means, well, I identify like, hey, this is longer than it was. It feels a little different, but go outside and now put the proof in the pudding. Is like, all right, well, how does it corner? How does it handle? Is this better? Is this worse? How are you sprinting? How are you climbing? Right. And that's all things. Like, a lot of people will tell me that my reach is too long when they first see me. I'm like, well, on my road bike, yeah, of course it is, because I'm also a sprinter. So at the end of a race, when I get into my sprinting position, it's in the exact spot I want it to be. So am I overstretched by 10 millimeters a little bit? Yeah, sure, maybe. But from a handling perspective, it's exactly what I want. Right. So it's always, you have to change it and ride it and give it time for your body to adjust to it. And we get this in the bike fitting all the time, especially when someone saddles too low and you start to move them up, they're like, oh, I'm reaching here.
Yeah.
I'm always like, well, let's pause for a second. What's the pressure feel like in the bottom of your foot, the bottom of the pedal stroke? Do you still have that connection? Yeah. Still drive through? Yeah. How does your saddle feel? Any additional pressure in your saddle? Are your hips still nice and stable? Yeah, still nice and stable. And we got good foot contact. You're not reaching, you're extending.
Yeah.
There's a difference, the fine line. And when you're cramped up and you start to extend out, it feels long. And then take them to the place where like, this is what reaching feels like.
I had that exact situation in the studio this week. I had a gentleman who'd been riding on a really, really low saddle for a long time. And we got him into a great place. And he was kind of still at the low end of the range, but and initially he was like, oh, I really feel that. And I was watching his foot and I was like, yeah, let's see how this goes. And so I'm just blah, 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 like I do for 5-10 minutes. And all of a sudden he looked beautiful. And I was like, okay, it didn't take all that long to feel adapted. And yeah, there's going to still be some adaptation where, he may feel a little fatigue and but I got a text from him the next day and he's like, dude, I PR'd all these, segments on Strava. And I was like, great, because we're finally in a position you can create power. And he was all,
and that's the thing. And
big guy who had played like soccer and football and all these things. And I was like, you've been throwing the ball with your hand. That was it. It was like,
yeah,
there was no wind up, there was no follow through. You've been doing this. And he totally got that. He was like, oh, okay. So,
yeah. It's
anyways,
that change of feel is really the hard part, right? It's
it
like
is.
identifying like is it a positive change or a negative change, and is it just that it's different? And you
Yeah.
got to give it time. That's
Yeah.
really the biggest thing, is change something. And I'm always a big fan, and I tell my clients this too, is like afterwards, like don't be scared to play around with the positioning. Just because we found the proper spot doesn't mean like this is the holy grail here. What I would say is if you're going to move something, you're moving it because you have an urge,
Right.
right? I feel like this is long or short or whatever it is, right? So you have an urge, move it. Did it fix what you wanted it to fix?
Mm-hmm.
If not, move it back
Yeah.
and then go
I
the
always
other
tell
way
him to text me.
and then go the
I'll talk
opposite
you
way.
off the ledge, right? Let's talk about
Well,
what
I
we're
always say,
doing.
yeah, especially
Let's
my last.
record everything that you do.
Exactly. It's a recipe. Record it. And I
Yeah.
always say is like, feel free to reach out and I'll tell you what to watch out for.
Yeah.
Hey, if you do move this here, make sure we're not losing the foot
Mhm.
pressure, or make sure the pressure doesn't go towards your toes or something like
Right.
that. And if it does, it's a bad sign. Let's move it back.
Yeah.
But just to move it doesn't make sense. Move it with a goal. And if the goal wasn't reached, move it back and move something else.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's counterintuitive in cycling for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes we got to move back when we think we should move forward and stuff like that. So it's like, if it didn't work, I always say go the other direction.
I know. It's the same
And
like turning a when I'm
see if
turning
that
like
works.
limit
If not,
screws or whatever. It's like turn it one way. If it doesn't work, go the other way.
go the other way and just
I know.
count.
I could
Two
never
turns,
remember which way limit
right?
screws go, but
Two clicks, 2 clicks.
I know. Anyways, I'm going to wrap up. And I had another topic I wanted to talk about, but maybe we can do this again. I want to talk about this week and next week a little bit. And
Yeah, go for it.
then we'll wrap. So we are going into week 7. And this challenge was built a little differently than others. We're not going to do a cutback in week 8. We're going to keep building. This is our big build for the spring here. So you're in intensity right now. Week 7 is going to have a lot of intensity as well. And really pay attention to your recovery and your rest. I think that's the only way we can maximize this. We can take our rest days. We can take the recoveries during our intervals. It's okay to be in zone 1 when the instructor calls you in zone 1 or zone 2. So keep the easy parts of your training easy, and that's going to allow you to go hard when you should. The hard is the important part, but the easy allows you to get there. Adding extra hard does not make it better. It just makes it harder, and it makes you accumulate more fatigue. So we're going to keep the easy. It's definitely going to be a harder week, and it's going to be more intensity. And it's 7 hours of training time for those of you doing the 5 ride and strength challenge. So that's a lot of training for most of you. Keep the easy part easy. We want to go into this well, and we're setting you up for some super compensation. So that was the other thing I want to talk a little more length of, how do we come out of this challenge and make the most of it? So we'll talk next time about that. And week 8 is not your cutback. So if you're thinking, week 7, it's great, I'm going to go hard, and week 8, I get easier. Nope. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to keep it mostly endurance. And then we're going to increase the volume a lot in that last week. So that's going to set you up for a couple of things as we go into the next challenge. So we'll talk about that next week. Someone had asked this morning, what's our next program? We're going to have 2 weeks between challenges. We'll have a 6-week climb challenge coming up, which is going to be super fun. And then the other program that's really neat, if you're in the challenges, you probably don't want to add this in, please. But Matt just announced a new Boost Your Base program. Did you see that? Yeah.
I did see that.
So he's been wanting to do this for a while. It's all Power Zone endurance. So those of you who maybe are runners and you want to cross train, or you're coming back from injury or illness or a break from the bike, really, it's going to be another good base building period, similar to what we're doing here, but it's going to be all endurance. And it should be exciting. I don't know a lot about it. Matt hasn't given me details, but I'm excited about the fact that he's added another Power Zone program. So it gives you more options. I think that's about it. Any parting words, Brian, before we have to actually go to the real parts of our job? Bike fit clients.
Get a bike fit.
Yeah. Anyways, sorry about the YouTube challenge this morning, but we're going to post this on the group, and we made it happen. We pivoted real quickly. That's the lesson in life today, is pivot and I always think bring the aloha home, right? The spirit of aloha, but I was in Majorca, so there must be some Spanish word for that.
There's
And
aloha everywhere.
I know there is aloha everywhere. So Brian, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
To
See
see
you guys
you.
later on.
Yeah. Bye-bye.